Southern Festival of Books, greetings from the underground. At the Caverns in Pelham, Tennessee, we're the home of Bluegrass Underground, subterranean concerts and cave tours. Joseph Campbell wrote about the monomyth, or hero's journey, where time and time again a hero is on a quest and must go into a cave to face his fears, and in doing so recover some treasure that changes him forever. Come visit us at the Caverns, where the cave you fear often holds the treasure you seek.
Hello, I hope everyone is doing well today. Welcome to the final event of the Southern Festival of Books. I want to welcome you on behalf of Humanities Tennessee, and also thank our partners, Metro Nashville Arts Commission, Ingram Content Group, Tennessee Arts Commission, Vanderbilt University, and Parnassus Books. My name is Ciona Rouse, and I am so thrilled today to be able to be here with our featured writer for this final event. That's really exciting to have here at the Southern Festival of Books. I'm very honored to welcome author Kylie Reid. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, I'm really excited to chat because I know that you're a poet as well. And that was something that I wish I had more of, was conversations with other writers from other mediums, as poets actually helped me out a great deal when I was in grad school. And so I'm so excited to chat and yeah, talk more.
Oh, I love it. I'm so excited we can talk through your cohort, and
yeah,
I'm happy to talk about poetry for sure. Well, I'm going to give a brief bio and let everyone know a little bit more about who you are and why this book is all the rage. And then we'll hear a reading from Kylie. And then Kylie and I will sit and chat as if I am Oprah, because I like to pretend I'm Oprah every once in a while. And then give you some time to ask questions at home. So thank you again for being here. Our guest today, Kylie Reid, joins us from Philadelphia, where she lives. And she is just blowing up the hearts of people all over with her incredible book, Such a Fun Age. Kylie is a fairly recent graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop, where she was the recipient of the Truman Capote Fellowship. And her New York Times bestselling debut novel, Such a Fun Age, again, is just taking over the charts. It just rested very peacefully in the New York Times bestseller list for so many weeks. It has garnered many fans, including Reese Witherspoon, who had it be a part of her book club. And it is even already in process, and I hope we can talk a little bit about this, to be developed into a film by Hillman Grad Productions and Sight Unseen Pictures, which must be so exciting. The novel was longlisted for the New York Public Library's 2020 Young Lions Fiction Award, the VCU Cabell First Novelist Award, the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work by a Debut Author. I mean, for a first book, you must be on cloud nine, Kylie. We are very honored to have you here with your many accomplishments and to talk about this incredible novel. So I will turn it over to you to read.
And I'm sure that there are a lot of writers listening, because I feel like writers gravitate towards other writers, which I know I do. And just, yeah, like, of course, I'm over the moon. Just everyone should know that this is the first good novel. There were tons of bad ones before this. This is the one that.
We'll talk about this.
Yes, we will. Yes. Yes. I am just going to drop you right in. to hear a little bit about the protagonist of my novel. This is about Amira. Briar was a welcome break from Amira's constant concern of what to do with her hands and the rest of her life. Briar asked questions like, why can't I smell that? Or where's that squirrel's mama? Or how come we don't know that lady? Once, after Briar tried zucchini for the first time, Amira stood in front of her high chair and asked the toddler if she liked it. Briar chewed with her mouth open and looked all over the room as she articulated her response. Mira, because how do you know when you like it? Who says when you like it? Amira was fairly certain that the caregiver-approved answer was something like, you'll figure it out, or it'll make sense when you're older. But Amira wiped the toddler's chin and said, that's a really good question. We should ask your mom. She honestly meant it. Amira wished that someone would tell her what she liked doing best. The number of things she could ask her own mother were shrinking at an alarming rate. Amira hadn't told her parents that she was babysitting and typing for a living, which meant she couldn't tell them about the night at Market Depot. Not that they would have had any insights she hadn't heard before, but it would have been nice to safely share her frustrations. In the 4th grade, a white classmate had marched to Amira's lunch table and asked her if she was a coon. Upon hearing this, her mother had promptly picked up the phone while asking Amira, what's his name? Amira was once followed by a sales associate in Brooks Brothers while she shopped for a Father's Day gift. Her mother had said, they ain't got nothing better to do. And once, after a bikini wax was complete, Amira was told that because she had ethnic texture, the total came to $40 instead of the advertised $35. To this, Amira's mother had responded, back up, you got what waxed? It would have been nice to talk to her parents about the night at Market Depot because it was honestly the biggest thing to happen to Amira in a while, and it involved her favorite little person. Amira knew that she should have been mostly disturbed by the blatant bigotry of the altercation, but more than actual racial bias, the night at Market Depot came back to her with a nauseating surge and a resounding declaration that hissed, you don't have a real job. This wouldn't have happened if you had a real fucking job, Amira told herself on the train ride home, her legs and arms crossed on top of each other. You wouldn't leave a party to babysit, you'd have your own health insurance, you wouldn't be paid in cash, and you'd be a real fucking person. Taking care of Briar was Amira's favorite position so far, but Briar would someday go to school. Mrs. Chamberlain didn't seem to want Catherine out of her sight, and even if she did, part-time babysitting would never provide health insurance. By the end of 2015, Amira would be forced off her parents' health coverage. She was almost 26 years old. Sometimes, when she was particularly broke, Amira convinced herself that if she had a job, a 9-to-5 position with benefits and decent pay, then the rest of her life would start to resemble adulthood as well. She'd do things like make her bed in the morning, and she'd learn to start liking coffee. She wouldn't sit on the floor in her bedroom, discovering new playlists and music until 3 a.m., only to put herself to bed and think, why do you do this to yourself? She'd try out a new dating app, and she'd have more interesting interests to write about, activities other than hanging out with Zara, watching old music videos, painting her nails, and eating the same dinner at least 4 nights a week, a crock-pot meal consisting of shredded chicken, salsa, and cheese. If Amira had a real job, she'd look at her wardrobe full of clothes from Strawberry and Forever 21 and decide it was past time for an upgrade. Amira constantly tried to convince herself that she could find another child, a little girl with nice parents who needed her full time. They'd keep her on the books, and she could say she paid taxes. They'd take her on vacations and consider her part of the family. But when Amira saw other children, anyone who wasn't Briar Chamberlain, she felt viscerally disgusted. They had nothing interesting to say. Their eyes had dead, creepy stares, and they were modest in a way that seemed weirdly rehearsed. Amira often watched Briar approach other toddlers on swings and slides, and they turned away from her saying, no, I'm shy. Other children were easy audiences who loved receiving stickers and hand stamps, whereas Briar was always at the edge of a tiny existential crisis. Underneath her constant chatter, Briar was messy and panicky and thoughtful, constantly struggling with demons of propriety. She liked things that had mint smells. She did not like loud noises. And she didn't consider hugging a legitimate form of affection unless she could lay her ear against a welcoming shoulder. Most of their evenings ended with Amira paging through a magazine while Briar played in the bathtub. Briar sat with her toes in her hands, her face a civil war of emotions, singing songs and trying to whistle. She'd have private conversations with herself, and Amira often heard her explain to the voices in her head, "No, Mira is my friend. Mira's my special friend." Amira knew she had to find a new job. I'll stop there. Thank you. Oh, thanks. That's so nice. Thank you.
I know that everyone at home is also clapping, but to hear my claps. Oh, wonderful. My goodness. Thank you. And congratulations on how everything is playing out for you with this book.
Thank you very, very much.
I actually love that this section that you chose, I believe, covers so many different topics that the book addresses. But obviously one thing that it starts with is hands. And I feel like hands are such an important imagery throughout the book. And one of the things that really came up for me when I kept hearing hands and even thinking about Amira being in a hometown that where people communicated with their hands. If you haven't read the book, her hometown is a high percentage of deaf population, has a high percentage of deaf population, but also where her family use their hands. And so here you've placed this Black family in a very worker narrative that I feel like we often assign to white America when we're talking about working class and
right.
hands. Can you talk a little bit more about your decision to include so much about the working class and so much about just the financial disparities in our nation?
Absolutely. First of all, no one has asked me that like that, and that's such a fascinating question. And I've just noticed in myself as a writer, hands are very, very important, not just in my characters, but in my process. And when I was writing, well, I've always had other, like at least 2, but sometimes 3 part-time jobs while I was writing. And it was always a really big help when one of them had a lot of hand work. I was a barista, and doing that kind of work with the machine was really helpful. Obviously, I'm writing a lot. I just gravitate towards things that are very grabby if I can. Like I like doing, jobs that seem like minutia with my hands. When I was a receptionist, it was a lot of hands. And for some reason, that just helps my brain kind of focus a little bit to be moving in that way. And it's funny you say that, because when I was workshopping the novel, one of my classmates said, all of your characters are doing things with their middle fingers, like when they touch things or when they scroll. And I think it's because I do that, which I'm so glad someone called me out so that I can fix that. But I'm very into what my characters are doing with their hands. And yes, that goes so much into what people view as working class, as what people, see as blue collar, and Black people do not always fit into that image for some people because it's not who they see, and they just have a different vision in their head. When really Black people have been working with their hands for hundreds of thousands of years, sometimes by choice, sometimes not by choice. And so I was really intrigued by this family that are, pretty much artisans. I love documentaries. They're a huge part of me getting inspired. And I don't know if you remember that documentary, Hero Dreams of Sushi. I was very inspired by this chef who truly believes that you in your life should pick one thing and become excellent at that thing. And I don't know if I believe that for my life, but I really like looking into the way that other people live their lives. And so that is where Amira's parents and family are resting under, perfect this one thing and keep going with that one thing. And it doesn't work that easily for Amira. So that's where she starts struggling a little bit. But also I saw another documentary called The Sound and the Fury that had a town in Maryland. It is not the same town that I chose. I chose to do a fictional one where a large part of the population was deaf. And I thought it was really fascinating. And it became part of the culture in this really beautiful way. And I thought, Amira is a person who is very good at communicating, but she's not right away. Right. She takes a minute. And I think I can kind of be the same way. But when it comes to these viral videos where, someone is being mistreated, where there's a Black woman who's, saying something is wrong, it's constantly the moment where someone's had enough, and you see a Black woman say perfectly, like, hey, this is not okay. I have time today. You need to listen. Like, that's not okay that you did that. And I think that a lot of people get it in their head that that is the perfect response, when really, I don't know if I could respond like that. And I wanted to give Amira room to not be the perfect communicator all the time, because she's human, and she needs to think about these things a little bit more. So yes, her race and her class and her background really go into this moment and everything she's faced with. Yeah.
Right. And speaking of communication and like having to pull back, I feel like you deal with so many microaggressions, and you deal with them really wonderfully in the book. I noticed that they're often either in parentheses or listed, kind of this litany of microaggressions, which is kind of how it happens, that Amira doesn't often address in the immediacy. I'd love to hear a little bit about, in many ways, I think it's a book so much about microaggressions and how they feed into our life. So let's talk a little bit about race and microaggressions, and not just deal with race in these huge, big ways, which there is a big way that happens in the book, but to do it in these smaller ways.
Yes, absolutely. I think that a large part of the Black experience, especially for Black people in white spaces, is disassociation. And there's so many reasons that happens. Someone makes a joke, someone says something, and you hear it, and your throat kind of closes up, and there could be so many things going through your mind. I want that promotion. I'm not going to say nothing. Oh, I don't want to make this awkward. We're on a retreat. I can't do that right now. Oh, you know what? I just started working here. I don't want to be that person. I'm going to respond to these stereotypes of the angry person and not say anything right now. There's so much that goes into those decisions. And so, when it comes to microaggressions, I think it's really interesting. And I'm not a sociologist. I don't know how this works, but I know that for me, and I think for most Black people, there have been probably, a moment in your past where you had a scary moment where you thought, oh my goodness, like, am I not safe right now? Am I okay? Am I going to get hurt? Is this a hate crime? That being said, I'm human. And I know that when I go to bed at night, it's not those big moments I'm thinking about. It's the little moments that have this gray area that I can't stop obsessing over. I don't know what it is. Okay, I have an example of this one. When I was a receptionist, I was 26, and we were all joking about that show, The Bachelorette. And I was single, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go on. I'm going to go on The Bachelorette. I'm going to win. It's going to be so great. And the director at my firm that I was working at said, oh, but you would straighten your hair though, right? You'd have to. You definitely have to straighten your hair. And I said, no, I would just like be who I am. Like, no. And he's like, oh no, you should definitely straighten your hair, like make it nice, long and sleek. And then, yeah, you'll be set. So of course I didn't say anything. I was 26. This was my big paying job. I wanted to keep it. I needed to pay my rent. I needed health insurance. Of course I didn't say the perfect retort in that way. But I think the important thing to remember about microaggressions like that is, I think the reason that they stick with you is, one, I'm human and it hurts my feelings, and, I don't like that. At the same time, you start to wonder, okay, that other job that I didn't get, is that because of my hair? That apartment I didn't get, is that because of my hair? That person who didn't, like, what else is driving these things? And so microaggressions are the things that we focus on, but the reason that they're a huge problem is because they're a symptom of a bigger problem that actually affects people's livelihood and the quality of their lives.
Man, I really related to Amira silencing herself so often, and even that frustration around it that we, I don't know that she necessarily talked through it as much, but yeah, that feeling, I related to that so much.
Mm-hmm.
When you were writing the book, I'm curious if Amira was the first character that came to you, or was Alix?
Yes.
Alex
too. Yes.
Wild name change. Yeah, which character came to you first?
Yes, so that was Amira. I don't know about you with characters in your prose, but Amira, some characters just present themselves to you so clearly. And Amira was Amira from the very beginning. she just was like, hello, I'm here for you. You can get to know me. I'm a little shy, but like, I'll come at you. And that was it. Alex took a very long time and a lot of name changes and a lot of deleted scenes. I had written like diary entries for her almost that were like written out in list form. And none of those made it into the book. It took a long time to get to know Alex a little bit better. But Amira was just Amira. And this is kind of insider baseball, but she was Amira with an A for like 6 months. Okay. But then when I decided on Alex, I wanted them to have different letters. So she became Amira instead.
Oh, nice. I love that, insider baseball. Perfect. Yeah. You know, when I do attempt prose, I'm mostly in writing and poetry, but when I do attempt prose, I often do diary entries.
Ooh, okay.
I'll write poems in their voice. Like a lot of times I'll do haiku just to kind of like distill their voice. So I love hearing that you do some of that.
If your characters like are not very good writers, do you insert that into the poems that they write?
I think that because I stick with haiku, I'm just getting in their heads, right? Because I often stick with very short poems around them. So it's just to get in their heads more than anything and just kind of figure out what their language is, what they use.
Yes, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah.
What about your diary entries? What if they're not writers?
That's a good question. Alex was a writer, so maybe that was a little bit easier for her. And I think that there's a bit of an editorial motif to everything that she's writing because she's used to turning her writing in. So that did help me get to know her a little bit. I feel like everyone, when I start writing, all of my characters are like a bit over the top, like a McSweeney's character almost, and then I have to pull them back a little bit. So I think Alex started out being a little bit more insecure than I wanted her to be. And then I was like, why can't she just like be confident in who she is and in her writing? And, you know, only writing it takes you to that place. You know, there were so many instances where I wrote a scene from Alex's point of view, and it took me writing it to realize this is way more interesting from Amira, so I have to switch. So a lot of trial and error, but anything that is about your characters and who they are, I think it informs the writing, no matter if you keep those pages or if you throw them away. Yeah.
And now this novel, were you workshopping it at Iowa?
I was. So every other year, Iowa does a novel workshop where everyone brings in, I think, a minimum of like 160 pages or so. And so I took that and I brought in, I think, 240 pages of this. And I was so nervous. And listen, like workshops, you know, you're a writer, they're a mixed bag. Like some of them are great and some of them are like, that was terrible. This was the most lovely workshop I have ever been in. And it's also just, I don't know, it was the reason I went to school. I was reading a novel every week. And something else that really helped was the group was so kind. The teacher was Paul Harding and he was wonderful. And the stuff we were reading, there was an epic African, like multi-generational novel. There was a sci-fi novel about a megachurch. There was a novel with John Wayne in it. There was an academic. They were so different that it was very easy to say to each piece, okay, what would this look like when it was at its very best? And then meet the piece on its terms and make it better from there. So yes, I did workshop this. I took a lot of the notes from my class. They were very, very helpful. And then, yeah, at the end of the semester, that's when I sold it. So that workshop worked great. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
That's super. You just mentioned something that I wanted to follow up on, and now I've lost it.
Oh, you're fine.
You met Trevor Noah.
I did. Yes, he was so nice. Yes.
I loved that interview with him. I just get excited when anyone meets Trevor Noah.
He's very kind. And I do feel like I don't know about you, but I do feel like in the past 4 years or so that writers are getting pulled into entertainment conversations a lot more than they were before. And I love hearing about other writers' process and what went into things and everything. So I was so excited to have my work analyzed that way. I was so nervous. I could have thrown up, it was the most nervous I've ever been, but it went great.
Well, you played it cool. I would never have known. I wanted to ask a little bit about that. I love that he brought up about the awkwardness that's such a part of this novel. And you said that you like awkward times. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about what is that experience of being awkward that gets you excited?
Yeah. I think in terms of me being like a consumer of art and a reader, it shows up in the same form, when you learn about a culture and the rules of that culture, and then you see the rules getting broken a little bit, and it sets everything a little bit off kilter. And I think the extreme version of that for me, I love horror movies a lot. I love feeling uncomfortable, but most of all, I love the beginning stages of a horror movie when like something is just not quite right and you can't figure out what it is. That unnerving feeling I think is really magical. But within a novel, especially a novel like this, especially a novel dealing with race, something happens where these awkward moments happen because the history comes sliding back no matter what you do. So, even though you think your babysitter's happy and you feel like you pay her enough and everything, one little interaction makes you think, oh shoot, because of this whole history of slavery, are we okay? And it was really interesting that something a lot of people commented on with Such a Fun Age is, oh my gosh, I couldn't handle Alex saying, oh, my babysitter, like she owned her. I thought that was really interesting because, I have a chiropractor and I say, oh, my chiropractor. I say it all the time, right? Because that history is not loaded. And so no one's, saying that I think I own my chiropractor. Right. No one's worried about him not getting paid well. No one's worried about him like being disrespected. And so when those moments come around, it's because history presents itself again. And I think it reveals something in us that we aren't ready to share. And so, yeah, I do love the awkward moments when they're not happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I thought about it a lot with hands as well, with that imagery, because in those awkward moments too, we often don't know what to do with our hands, or we want to like choke someone, but we have decorum.
Yes. I usually reach for a glass whenever I always make sure I have a drink, because like taking a drink is always like the awkward move that I like to do. Yes.
I love it. One other thing that I do want to talk through is the friendships, which, I think Alex is having a lot of those conversations about those awkward moments with her group of girlfriends. And then you've got Amira with her group of girlfriends, and they're often out and about and trying to like deal with life by celebrating often. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with your girlfriends and why it was important to include these kind of girlfriend relationships.
Absolutely. I definitely benefit so much from strong girlfriend relationships. And some of those strong relationships, I would say, are not girls, they're gay men, but still, I mean, the support is so palpable and huge and intangible. And so I know I am, this novel is the fruit of so much support from many, many friends. I remember when I was applying to graduate school the first time, one of my girlfriends designed my resume. She's a designer. Another one tutored me in math for the GRE, and another one wrote me a recommendation letter. And I didn't even get in. It was the worst. It was like, you guys did all this work to support me and I didn't even get in. And they were just so supportive the entire time. But through the novel, I also thought it was an opportunity to discuss cultural capital and how that also comes with friendships. With Alex's group of friends, they met at a doctor's office that Amira would probably never be able to afford to go to. They help her out with job applications and networking and knowing people. And I think that friendships are often either held together or torn apart by that class solidarity and what they can offer each other. And so, Amira's girlfriends can help her out a little bit with like a coat check fee, but not that much. But with Amira and her girlfriends, it was really important for me to show all the different sides. There's them having fun at Shawnee's apartment and being silly and getting dressed. But there's also them coming to Amira's rescue and getting her stuff and making sure that she's okay. And then there's them in a bathroom negotiating for a job and making sure that they get, dental or whatever it is. I think that Black women are also often only seen in one tiny, space. And it was really interesting and important for me to show how Amira and her girlfriends were in public versus in private, and how they often use the stereotypes that they have to get what they want, which I think is something that's very common in the Black community. But I also just wanted them to be really fun and real and, unfortunately give terrible advice sometimes. That's what we do.
That's what we do sometimes. Yeah. Well, Kylie, we do have a question from a Facebook viewer named Megan. And she asks, if you were in charge of casting the screen adaptation of your book, who would you cast?
Okay. First, Megan, thank you so much for this. Okay. This used to be my favorite game ever. Like, casting the novel is my favorite game. So I love that question so much. But now it is an excellent problem to have. Now that it is going to be a film adaptation, I feel like I can't say any names because I don't want to jinx anything, unfortunately. But I will say this, there's been so many adaptations, and I love film, and I kind of love it when an adaptation goes a little bit off of the book and has a new little spin on it. So I'm not trying to be too precious with it. Something that does really matter to me is I've seen a lot of adaptations where a character is suddenly 8 shades lighter than they were in the novel. And that is something that I feel so passionately about. I am executive producing, and also my 2 production teams are very, very wonderful and supportive. And so what's important to me is that we have a dark-skinned woman, because that is part of this story. The whole plot hinges on her next to this very white child. For me, that's what I care the most about. But yes, I think I do know a few of them, and when you find out, they're going to be very exciting. But unfortunately, I can't talk about them.
So you do know who they're already talking to?
I do know who they're talking to, yes, but who knows? Oh, that's another thing too, is it's so hard because of, this pandemic, of everything getting shut down and whatnot. So I'm just going to keep on crossing my fingers, and hopefully we'll have good news at the end. Yeah.
And so Lena is in conversation with you often throughout this process. I love it.
Yes, they're wonderful. They're just like a team, and it feels like one of those good workshops that happens sometimes, which is great. Yeah.
All right, we do have another question from Facebook. Our viewer named Karen is asking what writers have inspired or influenced your writing.
Okay, so many. And Ciona, I don't know if you're like this either, but so many of the writers that I have been inspired by, their writing is nothing like mine.
Yes.
Yes, I don't know why that happens, but that's
sure.
that. I love Donna Tartt's writing a lot. Her books really get me. I would say James Baldwin, from his speeches to his novels to his play, really, he knows what he
read any of his poetry?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, he's got some great poetry as well.
Okay, I need to get on that, obviously.
Blues, I know.
Yes, absolutely. James Baldwin for sure. I would say, let me think, more recently, Hallie Butler wrote 2 really short novels, The New Me and Jillian, and I absolutely love them. I do not write in first person ever. Maybe one day I will, but it's just not for me right now. And she does it with such ease and grace and grit and rage. And those novels were really, really wonderful. I'm also really obsessed with any novel that has to do with the culture of work right now. And so those for sure. And there's also, what is her name? A Japanese writer who wrote a book called The Factory. That really, really inspired me this year. And it's about this factory where people do really mundane tasks, and all of a sudden all these black birds start gathering over the building. It's very good. It's called The Factory. It's very good.
And is this a Japanese American writing in English, or?
I believe I read a translation, and it was so good. I want to make sure I give you the name because it was amazing.
I enjoy reading translated work.
I have to say, I am not reading enough, obviously. It is by Hiroko Oyamada, and it was amazing, The Factory. Yeah.
Now, can you think of one of the earliest things that you read? Maybe even you may have been a child. I don't know when you first wanted to start writing, but maybe an early writer who made you excited about being a writer.
Absolutely. I don't know about you, but I was fairly obsessed with anything Goosebumps because I loved being scared. Any R.L. Stine.
R.L. Stine.
I had every single one, like
great.
Very, very into it. But I do remember one that had a huge effect on me. I don't know if you remember the historical fiction writer for children called Avi. He had a book called The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. And it was about a young girl who got on the wrong ship, and she was accidentally involved in a mutiny on a ship. And it scared me so much. And I really, really loved it. Yeah.
My sister loved R.L. Stine. And so I read a lot of R.L. Stine and books about people dying of cancer. I think Marilyn McDaniel, did you ever read her?
No. Well, wait.
Wow, what a depressing thing to read in my youth.
You know what though? I read so many depressing horror. I don't know what it was. Like, I think the drama of it really, I just like, it felt so important to me at the time. So yeah, don't worry. You're
Well,
still.
I think at the extreme of fright, I feel like you build up tension and fright in the book really well, in a way where I know what's going to happen in that, like one of the major conflicts. You kind of told us what it is, even though the characters don't know. But I still feel this like pounding and fright and, quick page turning because of it. So
I love that tension building a lot. I love something that kind of keeps me pulling a little bit. That's probably why I like TV a lot as well. I think that there's just, maybe that's why I like old-fashioned storytelling a little bit. I use a lot of traditional methods, such as a big dinner scene in the middle, the event at the beginning that kind of combines everyone, understanding that like there's a connection somewhere in there. I love taking those traditional boundaries and rules and kind of making them really modern. Those are my favorite things.
What's inspiring your writing right now?
Oh boy. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way. Writing is just different now. Obviously, I don't really go anywhere anymore. And I feel like I've gotten into such a nice groove going to a coffee shop every day. But now it's just at home, which is, if we can be safe, that's all I really care about. So that's fine. So right now with things that I'm writing, I'm very interested in the culture around religion. That's showing up a lot in my writing. I'm still watching lots of documentaries as well. I'm very interested in consumerism right now and how people buy things and why people buy things. And so I think things that people own is really interesting me. I'm reading a book called Kicking the Hustle by Lester K. Spence, which talks about the Black elite and neoliberalism, which is really great. So that one's definitely inspiring me right now. Yeah. I'm curious how your process has changed during the last 7 months or so as well.
Right. Well, I'm really good at just holding up inside of my house. So there's something that I kind of love about being here and writing, but I've still figured out ways to be writing in community, even if it's just simply we've had writing times at the same time, or, the people that I love are showing up in my writing, or we're sharing, I use Marco Polo quite a bit just to share some work. So I think that's one thing that's showing up for me. And I feel like I'm kind of even diving deeper into myself, which poetry can end up allowing that maybe a bit more than fiction does, but maybe not.
I'm not a poet. I think I wrote a poem. I wrote a poem in 3rd grade that I recited, and it was about an ant getting in a fight with a bear, and he defeats him with a super soaker. So it was pretty good.
I love it. That sounds great. Yeah, I mean, it's such a fun age being the name. This is not a fun age, right? Where we are. And, and the book is actually written now, nowish. I guess the setting is 2015.
Yeah.
So it's all very familiar. Yeah.
There's a lot on there. Yeah. It was very purposefully in 2015. I think, unfortunately, I understand the thought process around it for sure, but I think, unfortunately, we often romanticize anything before current reigns. Right. And things were so much better. And unfortunately, the year that this book starts is when Black Lives Matter makes themselves known because of so many men being killed by law enforcement. And so I think the 2015 even seems even clearer to me now from where we are today. And that's where Amira's at. And she's struggling to get health insurance the way that many people are struggling to get health insurance today. And, when I don't know about you, but whenever I finish writing something, I'm done. I don't want to see those characters anymore. It's over, close it up, it's done. But I have thought about, if Amira was babysitting now, what would happen? I know when I was a nanny, I'm sure that a lot of families would have said, yeah, of course we'll help you for like 3 weeks, but then I don't know what I would have done. And I think that Amira would have been in the same place. And this pandemic is going to change a lot of the lives of domestic workers in ways that are probably catastrophic. And so I've definitely thought of her often during this time. Yeah.
I know that is obviously you were writing about it. You were writing this pre-pandemic. It came out before the pandemic, but definitely concern for domestic workers is even higher right now.
Right. It's difficult. Yeah, but I do think that, you know, hindsight is so 2020 and you see times a little bit differently and you romanticize it, but also it seems worse than it is. And I think what I try and do with my writing is just focus on the people, not how it was for everyone, just for this one woman, just for her one experience. And it's funny because we've taken such a dive. I don't know if you've noticed this too. And like, listen, I get the sentiment behind it, but everything for the past like 6 years is like, girl, you are a boss, you're a queen, you're a badass, you're amazing, like you're like all these things. And I am here for averageness, like, because some days I feel very, very average. And so that was with Amira, I wanted to have this girl in this crazy age that's really, you know, tricky and hard, who's just trying to be average and how hard it is for her. So yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, it's really a coming of age novel in so many ways, but in a, you know, at a different age, right, than your normal coming of age idea. I really also resonated and appreciated how often she would say, "Oh, this feels like an adult," or this kind of desire to feel more like an adult. Sometimes I still sit and think.
Yeah, I had that, I think, whenever I rented a car for the first time. I was like, I'm an adult. Like,
right.
Yeah,
I remember that. I rented my first car in Boston, and
Boston's a city to drive into.
It's a difficult city to drive in.
Yeah.
I remember feeling like such an adult, and then just was immediately humbled by being terrified with everyone.
Yes. So many little moments. I remember, I think living by myself too for the first time. This is silly, but I remember I dropped a glass and it shattered. And I could hear my mother saying, "Don't move, I'll get it. Don't move." But I'm by myself. I'm the adult. I have to get it. But I still hear my mom in my head sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
I remember I'm an adult. Yeah. So I think that's pretty normal for everyone.
Well, if you were to dress up your current writing practice, I noticed in the novel you do reference a lot of fashion, as well as just there's important elements to like what people are wearing or the uniform in Europe puts on every day when she's with Briar. But if you were to dress up or put a uniform on your writing practice right now, what would your writing practice be wearing?
I love fashion questions. Okay.
Okay.
So I think that it would definitely be something comfy, something very comfortable, because that is what this time is about. So like maybe tried and true sweats from like 18 years ago. Yeah, it would definitely be sweats, but like in a fun color. However, I do feel a lot more grounded in my writing and what I want to do now. It feels like I have more tools in my toolbox. And so I'm going to say that my writing process outfit would have a very nice, luxe, expensive sports bra underneath. That's like to work.
Nice. Hold the girls in well.
Yeah, one of the good ones that you splurge on a little bit. Yeah. And then no shoes, no socks, because I'm at home. That's where I'm at.
How perfect. Well, my goodness, it has been so fun to chat with you, and I wish we had more time.
This has been really lovely. I really appreciate you chatting with me today.
It always goes so quickly. I now want to dive into some more. I love documentaries as well, so I'm like, oh, there's a list of documentaries that I want to get to. So perhaps I'll spend some time inspired by you.
Do it. Yes, this has been really, really lovely. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the festival as well. Hopefully another time in person, of course. Yes. I appreciate you guys having us.
Well, I think maybe in the chat, people have let everyone know. Our tech person, Aileen, who's been amazing, has let everyone know how to get copies of the book. If you don't have it already, you can buy that from Parnassus through the festival. And I believe that this is, yeah, I not believe this is definitely the last one. So you're closing the festival for us, Kylie. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Okay. I hope this was a good closing out. Yeah. Everyone stay safe. Wash your hands. Keep reading. Try and be strong.
Stay safe. Wash your hands. Keep reading.
Yes.
And wear a mask.
Yep.
Thank you again to our sponsors, and thank you to everyone for participating and celebrating books and language. And it's important always, and it's definitely important now. So have a wonderful evening. Thank you again, Kylie.
Thanks, Ciona. Bye.